Good evening once again, guys. Today we are going to be working on data types. So let's do a recap of what we did last time. So we're able to set variable name, and we equate it to a data. If we're using a string, we just say a data like this, right? One of the important things you need to understand about programming is the fact that you move data all around in your program. I pretty thought as much that you guys are gonna have issues with the console, so I've changed the methodology I'm using. So I'm gonna explain this interface that I'm using now so that you can replicate this interface to what you'll be using. I'm gonna start from the beginning and close everything so that you're going to understand the interface I'm using right now. So this is your regular Visual Studio Code, and then this is supposed to be your HTML page, but this time around I'm just putting scripts inside and then writing my JavaScript inside it. Then what I'm doing next is to preview it. I just say I want to preview. I go to show preview and we have this result. This is also not new to you. Then there's this section here on the extreme right. I focus on developer panel, and immediately I do that, it shows me the console. Yeah, fine, I can type my code in the console, which is what we've been doing, and then it requires me to do more explanation for you to be able to have the results that you want. Some of you were able to go past the issue, and the issue was the fact that whenever you press enter, it will say undefined. Whenever you press enter, it will say undefined. In my own case, I was using shift and enter for me to process the next thing. So let me show you what I was doing. What I was doing was, if I do let j equals to 12, what I do is to press shift key and enter. So immediately I do shift key and enter, it brings it down, it doesn't execute. And if I press j here and I want it to execute, I'll press the enter key and then it will execute. If you just do, let's say const m is equal to hello, and then you press enter, it's going to execute. And when it executes, it gives you undefined. It doesn't mean that you can't come back and whenever you feel like, you can say you want to actually print what is m, and it will also still print what is m. Remember, the j there that was declared, you can always come and do j plus m whenever you wish, and it will still give you those results. So for me, I think it was just a nifty way for you to be able to work with the console to do some testing. So this is how to use the console. So if you put in your code in the console, once you press enter, it will execute that section. Whatever you keep putting in there, it still remembers it. So it knows that j is 12. Of course, you can change what j is. You can say j is now 44. And whenever you do m plus j, you're going to get hello 44. So that's what is happening there. So everything that you've been putting here are all valid. We're going to do something different today. We're not going to use the console section. We're going to use the IDE, but we're going to be looking at our result in the console. The console is going to be showing us the result of what is going on. That's the approach I want to use today. JavaScript has like 8 data types, but the question is, why do we need data type? Having a data type makes it very easy for computer to be able to process those data, because if we just have data that are not structured, you will not be able to easily compute those information. Computer is all about having structure, all about having processes. So if things are not well structured, computer will not know how to deal with it. You can't just give system bunch of data and say, oh yeah, process it. So it needs to be structured very well. And data type allows you to structure your data in a way that it will be understandable to the computer and even to humans when you are reading the code. So let's go ahead and start defining the data types that we have in JavaScript. JavaScript has 8 data types, but we will not be looking at all of them. We will just be looking at the ones that are very important to us. I'm going to ignore things that I know that is not relevant as, at the point of our discussion. Number doesn't need any form of introduction. We already know what number is. There are 1 to 3 that we can't. We have number from negative number to positive number to big number to very large number. So I don't need to go ahead and start doing some more definitions about that. And to define a number is by just specifying it in a number form. We know what number is. So anything that is a number, literally, will fit in that space. So these are primitive data types, meaning you can't break it down. Anything primitive means it can't be further broken down. That's the barest minimum it can get. So a number is a primitive type of JavaScript. and it can be expressed this way. So you've defined this to become this. That's the idea. Your variable name is now a number, just like we did in a previous example. We define radius, to be a number, and then the message we define it to be a string. So that's what we've been able to do here, and we've elaborated more in a previous class on this. Now, what other thing do we need to take note as far as number is concerned? They have the ability to either modify themselves, or you can perform operations on them. And those things are called functions or method. What that means is that you have the ability for you to perform an operation on this variable or on this number. Remember that this is a variable name. The R is a variable name. The data that it holds is a number data type. Some operations you can perform on number. So that is called the methods that you can perform on numbers. So I'll put it like this: the functions that you can perform on numbers. There's far more things that you can do with numbers as you get further into designing or dealing with projects or dealing with solutions or problems. You get to see that, oh, okay, there are some things you want to do with these numbers that is not allowing you to do. So say for instance, now I want to change this to a particular digit or to a decimal place, because imagine you're solving a maths problem and you are told to change this to 2 decimal place using the computer. That's going to be a very difficult thing to do using the computer. How do you intend to do that if you don't know the function responsible to do that? The number method have several functions to aid you to do things like that. So console.log. So you can see what is happening as we are running our code. The system is trying to execute this on the bottom and give us our results. So you can see what we have as our result here, 23.5523. How do you further process this to give you what we are looking for in terms of to make it a 2 decimal place or a 3 decimal place? This is a number data type. Then you can put a function to it, and that function name is called toFix. So this is the first function we are introducing ever. And what is a function? A function allows you to perform an operation on a value. So meaning a function can take in a value and then produce an output. We are going to be seeing a lot of functions as we progress in JavaScript. So this is like the first thing you are seeing. There's going to be like tons of it. So how do you then convert this to 2 decimal place? I told you that this is an object primitive, so which is here, and we've already converted this to a variable. Our 23.5523 is inside our variable name. To be able to use the number method, we'll have to put a dot in the front of our variable. So we have r dot, then you can then go ahead and put the toFixed. Remember that we are using a Visual Studio Code, and Visual Studio Code, one of the good things about it is that it integrates well with the programming language you are using. It knows that you're writing JavaScript, and so therefore it already knows that you are dealing with a number, and it provides one of the number functions that we're talking about, which is toFixed. So when you say you want to do toFix, now look at the way a function is written, and very important, function is a separate topic on its own. We've not gotten to function yet, but because we are talking about numbers, there's no way you're not going to be talking about member functions. So a member function is a function of an object. And what's an object? Is the number primitive that we're talking about. The member function is what? Is toFix. And toFix requires a parameter. And the parameter to pass there is the number of places, decimal places, that we want to make 23.523 to have. So if we say we want to convert this to 1 decimal place, we'll do this, and then you can see the result at the bottom. We have 23.6. That's using 1 decimal place. So if you said you want 2 decimal place, you have 23.55. So normally you won't be able to do this without using this function. So let's write a good example. Let's do our area of a circle again and see how it turned out to. And then I have my A So my age is 1745. So of course, as I said, I want to turn this to 2 decimal place. So I want this to be in 2 decimal place. Then I can do dots to fix, and then I have 2 here. So this way it makes it look nicer. String is a textual data. It has quite a lot of ways that you can define them. There are ways that you can define strings that make it very easy for you to work with. Okay, so let's do an example. So a JavaScript string stores a series of characters like hello. A string can be any text inside double or single quotes. So that's the way you define a string. So let's give an example of how we define a string. Let me just say text is equal to, how do you define a string? With a quote or a single quote. So you can use double quotes. I will just say hello using a double quote here, and here I will say another text. Then here I will use a single quote. But it's also always good to be consistent in whatever you do. So if you are be using double quotes for your string computation, it's always good for you to maintain the pattern that you've been using your quotes. I personally use double quotes, except the reason why I will use single quotes, I will share that when we go in depth. There are reasons why you use double quote or single quote. So you use single quote if you want to bring in double quotes inside your text. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say you are writing, you have let message equals to, you want to write a long message, and this message says, did you see that single quote I just added there? So if you want to introduce a quote inside your text, you have to use double quotes. If you want to use double quotes, or rather you want to use a single quote inside your quote, obviously you have to use double quotes. If you want to use double quotes inside your quote, you have to use single quotes. So let me write this in reverse. So I will say message 2, and this time around I'm using a single quote because I want to have a double quote inside, like this. So I can say I have a double quote. So you write this way because you want to introduce another quote inside, another kind of quote. Remember, string allows you to use single quotes and double quotes. So if it allows you to use any of those, what if you want to use a double quote inside a double quote? So let me show you the example. So that's why you see why it's working like that. Let's say message 3, and you want to do a single quote, or rather a double quote, and you want to also maintain what you've written here to say I have a double quote. Do you see that? Do you see the error? JavaScript will be confused, like what is going on here? It's introducing a quote. In his head, it's like we are supposed to be done here, and then you introduce something here. So for it, this is like a confusion. So whenever you want to introduce a double quote in your text, you need to put a single quote outside. If you want to put a single quote inside, you have to put a double quote outside. So that's a guideline. And then you ask me, what if you want to add all of them inside? Because it's possible that, well, I want to put a single quote, and I want to use both single quote and double quotes. What if I want to have, okay, let me just say single quote and double quote. So I want to have these two guys inside. How do you do it? So the way to do it is to use what we call backtick. You can see the sign on the screen. So it's before your one key. So once you add this, it allows you to put both single quotes, right, that we've just talked about, and it allows you to also deal with double quotes. So that way you can demo both at the same time. So let's do console log. So let's see what message 3 brings to us. So you can see our result for message 3. It allows you to put your single quote and your double quote. So if you print out your message 2, of course, all the results will work the way they are supposed to work. We have all the result there. The single quote will output the single quote, the double quote will output the double quote, then the one that has both of them, we have both of them. This is how you can define a string in JavaScript using these three methods. Then I want to talk about more things about this backtick. One of the features it has, one of the benefits of using backtick is that it allows you to use variable inside the text. So let me give you an example of what I mean by that. Let A is equal to 12, then let B is equal to 14. Then I can then say my message A, so I can do A times B is equal to yes. So normally this is what I would have done. So this is what we would have done in normal day, even though this guy is not doing the proper math. Well, let's make it do the proper math for us. Then we have our proper math done. So this is, you are used to this one. This is what we did in the previous class. We did something like this and we were able to get what we have. One of the benefits of using the back tag, the back tick, is that it allows you to have templates to create something like this, to put everything together this way, to allow the backtick to process this variable and output the content, which is A, multiplied by B. So you need to tell this backtick that this is a variable, not just a string, because if you call it like this, of course it doesn't know what you are talking about. It just knows that you are putting a variable out there. If you want it to output the result of what is here, you need to specify some weird character in it so that it can know what to do. So I've introduced three different characters. Because you have to tell it that this thing is special. This AB is special. It's not just a string AB. You are telling it that it's not a normal string AB. That is actually an existing variable that you want it to output the content. So how to do that is you do your $, do this bracket, and then it will be able to output the content of this inside here. The good thing about this is you're not dealing with some weird plus sign, and it does more than this. It can allow you to even do something like if you want to put a variable inside here. So you can repeat the same thing we've done and do this and do that again to B as well. So this way it brings something like this to light. So you can see say 12 times 14 is equal to this. So if you were to write this normally, you know how it will look like. So this one makes it more cleaner for you to do, and that's the benefit of these backticks here. Allow you to turn your string into a template where you can inject your variable into them. So if you just change this to anything now, it will process this for you. 3 times 14 is 42, like that. So that's the benefit of using the backtick. The number, this is also a number, but this is a string. Message is a string, and then it has what I call functions that you can perform on it. So if you put a dot without me even specifying, say let's go ahead and start taking one by one, we can just put a dot and then we'll see all the functions that we have there. So if you put a dot, immediately you get to see all the kind of functions that you can perform on this string. So we have quite a lot of them. Again, I'm not going to go through all of them because each and every one of them is very unique, and you need to know a big deal about those member functions. Imagine you have a text box and then you're supposed to find how many emails you have in that text box. That is string manipulation, so it's a class on its own. So let's move on to the next data type that we have, and that is called Boolean. Boolean data type are quite easy and they are just true or false. Boolean data type are just true or false. One of the most easy form of data to deal with in programming language. It's more of like used for flagging, like to flag if something is correct or not, or if you can do something or not. So let's say I have flag Of course, flag is a variable name. It doesn't really mean anything. So if you say true, so look at what color that true is holding. You can see that Visual Studio Code marked that as green for me. What that means is that this true is actually a keyword in JavaScript. It recognizes the fact that true is a thing. True is like, well, true. It's positive. Boolean can hold true or false. So it's either something is true or it is false. And you can define another thing and say, let's counter is equal to false. By the time we go in detail, of course, there's still other things we are going to be dealing with when we talk about the conditional statement, flow statements. You see how Boolean can be more effective. And Boolean are used to, as I've mentioned, to check, can you do this? Is this one true? Is it false? So they hold two data, yes or no, true or false. And they are used most of the time to control the flow of your application. If this one is true, do this. If it is not true, go and do that. They are very easy to work with. It's either they are true or they are false. So the next one that we have is undefined, which we will not really spend too much time about. If you declare a variable without you specifying the value, what we just done here is we declare a variable. Line 4 is called variable declaration. This is we declare a variable flag. We didn't say anything about it. If you try to use it, it's going to give you undefined. You wrote a variable that you didn't use or that you didn't initialize. Those are the terminology. So you have variable that was not initialized. It's going to give you undefined. It's different from this. This one now, if you go ahead and do this, you write a variable that does not exist. D is not defined, right? It's not, you didn't define it anywhere in your program. So if you say D, so what we did here is that we defined it, but we didn't initialize it. And then the data type is called undefined. So immediately you give it something, then it's now initialized to be 3, which is giving us 3. So it's a form of data type. So you can when you do something like this, you are defining it to be undefined. The second to the last type of data type we want to look at is objects. And what it does is that it allows you to be able to have other data type within it, and they are used to represent complex objects. Remember, look at what number is. Number, very easy. We just use 1 to define number, 2, 3, and things like that. String, also very easy. We just text, bunch of text. What next? We have Boolean, very easy, true or false. What about if you want to represent human data, database or data of human being or of a person, or you want to represent a car information? Car information will have the name of the car, the brand, the type, quite a lot of things. In fact, let's even use human being, for example. So they are used to capture complex objects. So let's say we have a person object. We want to create an object, so to say. And what is the requirement to create an object? Is using curly braces. An object has the ability to house primitive types. So what does a person has that A person has a name, right? So we can say a name is what? A property of a person, and the name can be, let's say, Michael. Do you see what is going on here? So this is looking like CSS, whereby you have these curly braces, and then you have the property, CSS property, and then you have the property value. That's the kind of thing that's going on here. But in this case, you are using the lets to declare the variable name, and then you have equal sign, you introduce the curly braces, you start having your property, and then you have your value. So what you've been able to do here now is that you've created a complex object. Even though it's still just one thing we added into it, the idea is to add more things, because a person doesn't only just have a name, he has more information, and that's what we're about to start passing into it. You are free to put as many kind of properties that you want. Again, remember that these are just examples. as the case may be, you might change it to be whatever you want. So let's go ahead and put other things. So let's say age. Let's say age is 25. And again, you are going to use numbers instead of a string, because age is supposed to be number. Age is not supposed to be a string. Then what other thing do you want to put? We can then use Boolean, for example, disabled. Since this one is more of like, it's either you are disabled or not disabled. So disabled is false. So do you see what we are doing here? We are creating a complex object, or you are creating a complex variable using an object data type. This is what you could have done and say name Michael separately, age 25, disabled, but you are going to be scattering your variables all the whole place. Here you are specifying that this person has all these parameters. Just one person. Of course, you can create as many different variables that you want, but this allows you a bigger deal of a control to be able to say, oh, this variable now you want to further process it to do other things. And by the way, this can do complex objects. It's not just data and value. It's not just property name and value. It can have object in an object, which I'm going to show you now. So I can say, okay, this person has children. So let's say children. What do I want to provide here now? I want to be able to provide complex objects of what this children is. Meaning I can say this children is also an object. Remember, this is the data type. This data, this value or variable or property name can actually have primitive type or complex data type. So it means these children can also have objects. So I can turn these children to also have objects and make it complex. What that means is that the children, I can then have, okay, what are their names and what have you. And this will introduce us to the next one. So let's just stop here. Let's not add the children. Let's use something else. Let me be able to extend this name and extend the name to have other parameter like first name and last name. So I'm going to make this complex and say, instead of just having name, inside it, I want to do first name. And the first name is also going to be a string. I will do Michael. Then I can say, okay, I want to have the last name as well. I can do James. So look at this now. Do you see what you have? So you now have a person that has a name, but the name is broken down into two, because you can then have, within a name, you can have first name and a last name. Then when you go out, you can then see the age and you can check if the person is disabled or not. If you want to print out this, of course, JavaScript is smart, and then the console is smart to return this to you in the way you gave it to it in an object form. So you can have the age, disability, true or false. Then you have the name, also an object. So do you see the way it represents the objects in that way? So you can even decide which one you want to print. You can say you focus on the person name alone, that you just want to see the person's name. And you can see how easy it is. You are able to access the property. So it's by using the variable name, and then you follow by the property that you specify here. So immediately you do name, you have all the name of the person, Michael and James. That's what you have there. That's what object is all about. So it allows you to do complex stuff. This is just one variable name, and you are doing quite a whole lot with it. Notice that let's go down to the primitive type, down to primitive. So let's go ahead to say first name. What data type is this first name? It's a string. What that means is that you can perform string method on it. You can perform string operations on it. So immediately you put dots, you allow all the string methods that we saw before. Remember that we're still going to have a string class separately. because string is a very large topic, so we're going to deal with it separately. So see the way it brought all the features of a string. So you could do anything you can, because this is a string obviously, so you should be able to do whatever you want to do with this string. And this age is a number, so you should be able to call age and do whatever you want to do with it. So if you do age dot everything that we did, you can see the toFix that we saw when we were dealing with number. We saw it here as well, trying to access each of the properties. So you can actually access each of the properties of this car. So I can do car.engine, for example. So if I do car.engine, it gives me only the information for the engine. So you can see here it says the type is V6, the number is that, and the horsepower is 500. And you can go ahead and say, oh, I want to know the horsepower alone. And with that, you can have this. If the horsepower has maybe some crazy decimal and you want to, do member function on that, you want to do to fix, we did this function, and you want to say, oh, okay, just make it 2 decimal place. It will do that. You see how crazy we've gone, details, how we've joined all the things we've learned together. So this is object. For example, inside object now we are doing number, because this is a number here. HP is a number. So that's how we're able to do that. So let's move on to the next kind of data type that we have. The next one we have is an array. Array is a special variable which can hold more than one value. The objects, when you saw them, the way you saw the object, or when you looked at the object held one information. In the case of person, we saw that the person was were able to hold one thing. The person is all about one. When we're dealing with objects, most of the time it's all about one. The car, the person, But when you're thinking of array is more of like, you're not talking about one, you're talking about a lot of objects. Think of array as multiple objects. That's the first concept you should look at. Array should be looked in form of multiple objects. Imagine the car that we saw now. Look at it that you can store more than one cars in an array. That's the way you should look at array and the way it should go. How do you define an array? You define an array using a square bracket. So that's what we'll use to define an array. Go ahead and define, let's say, an array of cars, right? And how do we say we define it? We use square brackets. So what this does is to define an array of obviously empty cars. There's no car inside, right? How do you then start putting your cars inside? First of all, an array can hold different type of objects. But because you say this car, obviously you should be thinking of holding, the same cars. But array can hold different things per se. So let's start very, very easy. And let's take it from the easy level, we'll take it to the advanced level. To make it easy, we can say we are holding Jeep, BMW, and we are holding Lexus. It's how to hold an array. You have the value in here, separate by the next value. Everything will be inside the square brackets. Remember, array can hold any type of data type. So we are starting with array of string. So this is array of strings, meaning the array is holding strings. That's just, that's just it. We want it to hold string. As I've said, you can make it hold anything you want, but I want to demonstrate, as it's holding all this information, I want to be demonstrating it. So I'm changing this to say, okay, let's say numbers. We want to put numbers there, maybe our favorite number. So we'll call this array of numbers, right? And then if you go ahead and do this, you can see your number on the bottom. This array of numbers. The same thing, I don't need to do the whole thing. We can do array of Boolean, array of this, and finally the one that we are very interested in is array of objects. How does it look like? So let's do array of objects. So it's Or let's just mix it first. Let's do array of everything. Let's mix everything up. Print everything out. You have this information, and it tells you, what is taking. It's taking a string, it's taking a number, it's taking a Boolean. So this is how you can define an array. You can see that each of the objects is having its own section, separated by comma. Each data has its own house where it saves its own information. And the array can allow you to put as many information as it is. That's both of an array. Remember my definition. Allow you to house as many information as you want. Then the part that I said I wanted to show you is the act of holding, so many objects. We just hold two. Let's just put two objects so that to make things fun. Array can hold anything. How do you define an object? Remember, curly braces. Did you see what happened there? This is an array holding an object, curly braces. I've not done anything special. I can go ahead and say I want to hold another object. So what object am I holding? I'm holding an empty object. There's an array that is holding an empty object. In fact, two empty objects. That's what it's holding. In fact, to make things look complex, I can even allow the array to hold itself, meaning hold another array. So the first item on our list is holding what? Is holding an empty object. The second one is holding another empty object. The third one is holding an array. So that's how complex you can go. And your problem will determine what you need to do. What you are trying to solve will determine the kind of data type you need to do. That's the point to all this. So all these things I'm doing is just to show you how you can work with the data types. So let's go ahead and start imputing what this is. To make it fun and very clean, let's go back and define a car. Our array of everything has a car and has a person. Do you guys see what's going on here? So when we define a car, we can put it inside an array that has a slot for car. When we define our person as an object, we can put that here as a slot for a person. So we can do this like this. Let's just go ahead and quickly define what a car is. So that's that. And you can see that your car here is carrying all the information of what you've defined here. The same thing with the person. So you still have all this other thing going in there. So what we've just done now, so you can see all our reports. If you go ahead and see the results on the bottom, you can see how it's defined. To access any of these objects, you just use numbers to access them. How do you access car? You use what? You use number. The position of the car or the person is, you just count it -1. So the car is in the first position, -1, it means it's 0. That's why you have 0 here at the bottom. To access the person, it is, the position is 2, but -1 is 1 here. So that's how the programming starts. They start counting from 0. Indexes start counting from 0. To access this car, you use your square bracket and put the number. It will access, the car future. So you can see the car object. So this is where the car object is because we use 0. To access this person, you use 1, and it will give you the person object there. So finally, I want to show you that you can use an array inside an object. And we have children. I wanted to create an object out of children, and I realized that children, obviously they are children, meaning they are many. So you can't just have one child. You want to have many children. So in that case, what object can you use to denote many is an array. So this will then become an array, so that you can then say, okay, I can have as many children as I want here. So this is me adding an object. I have an array in an object. So I can say this is Sam, that's child number 1. Child number 2, I can say James. Child number 3, I can say Peter. So you see what I did there? The children is an array that has string, data type. So if I check out the person, so if you check out the person details, you can see that you have your children, you have your name, Michael, and then you have children. Look at the number of array length, 3. And then inside it, you have strings of Sam, James, and Peter. And by the way, there's nothing stopping you from having a complex data type here. Instead of you having it as a string, you can have it as what? As objects. Individually can be objects. So you can go back to your object notation and say, oh, the name for this person is Peter. So that gives you, instead of your children being in a string, you now have it in an object form, where you can then say, okay, I actually want to have their age as well. And the parent's age, this guy's age, is 40. Then if I save, I have something that looks like this. So you can see how you've been able to capture this single person. However, he has children, and the children, one of the children's name is Peter, and this is age 10. The other one name is James, and this is age 3. So what we will do after this class is for us to start solving problem. By so doing, it will expose you more to the real-life concepts on how you can use this data type. Thank you for staying to the end. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and turn on bell notification in order to be notified when we release new videos. See you in the next one.